Ready?
Ready.
Ready.
Welcome to GLS Carriers Presents Team Talk. I'm Ken Cox.
And he has a birthday coming.
I think it's past.
It is past. It was last week.
Well, happy birthday, Ken.
Well, I appreciate that. Today we have Francis Hamm, Kenny Coons.
Howdy.
Behind the scenes we have Danny.
Idiot.
Hey, so last week we talked about Kenny and his journey. This week we'll talk about Francis and his journey.
All right.
We also talked a little bit last week about how Kenny progressed and became, company driver, owner operator, own authority, and whatnot, and how we work together as a team. So part of our team here at GLS Carriers is we have Driver Advantage. We have, and I'm going to butcher this, it's Driver Advantage Insurance and other things.
Yeah, there's equipment financing. They kind of hit a bunch of stuff.
And so as you guys are progressing through your journeys and moving up and moving along and getting your dreams accomplished, we have those tools here to make that happen. So if you have questions about that, safety@glscarriers.com, and we will direct you in the right places to go. Those of you who are not part of the organization and still want to call and ask those questions, we can help you out too. It's not just inclusive. So we reach out for all of that. Francis,
All right.
let's talk about your journey.
You bet. So, I talked a little bit before, and pictures, I don't know. I'm going to have to see if I can find some pictures. If I have some, it's going to be of the family trucks that we had when I was growing up.
Those will be in black and white, right?
That's right.
I'm kind of hoping that you don't have pictures so I can just throw up some random pictures.
right.
This is where Francis was taking his belly dance classes.
That's right. So, for myself, I never owned my own truck. I was a company driver. When I went from hauling hay as a kid and worked my way into it, I started running a flatbed. I hauled a lot of lumber. And then I went into proteins and started running proteins.
What would be proteins?
A lot of turkey and beef.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was, leaving the Colorado area is where I was running out of.
Is that live? Were they live? Were you moving cattle or just frozen?
I did move some live turkeys
Fowl.
for a couple years. And then after that, everything was refrigerated and/or frozen, in reefers. One of the things that I can remember coming up while I was driving before I actually got into the offices, I had a steady run. I used to run out of Colorado, and I did kind of a triangle. I would run up to the Chicago, Skokie, Illinois area, back down into Indianapolis, and then out of Indianapolis back into the Denver area. And I remember you start running that stretch of road, and pretty soon it's no different than running across town or something. You just get familiar with everything that you're looking for. You know where to stop to get you a drink. You know what's coming up down the road. And there was a house that I seen them building at one point. It was an empty field outside of Des Moines, Iowa. And I drove through there, and I seen them clearing it one time, and then I come back through, and they got a foundation crew, and next week I go through and they got a framing crew, right? And they go through this whole process. Anyhow, this house gets built, and I go through again, and they got a privacy fence they put up around it, and then there's playgrounds, and there's kids out playing. And, you do that for like 3 years. And I don't know these people, but I know their house, and I see their kids, and I see their kids growing and everything, and it's just funny. The United States, we look at it and go, wow, it's such a big place, but it's really not that big of a place. When you're out there and you're running down the road all the time, it's amazing how you become accustomed to where you're at, and it's just, you get to know it. I think that's really cool. But I went from there. I was given the opportunity. Of course, I grew up. My dad had trucks, and we did a lot of maintenance work on our own trucks. Mm-hmm. So when I transitioned out of driving every day, I transitioned into the shop, and I went in as a foreman in our shop. Spent some time there, and I inherited two different sides. One was a commercial vehicle fleet, which consisted of all of our tractor trailers, trucks, and things of that nature. And then we had a farm fleet. Back then, for our farm operations, we had over 600 pieces of equipment: tractors, graders, scrapers, things of that nature to take care of the grounds.
What were you guys farming?
It was turkeys.
Turkeys?
Yeah, turkeys. The company that I worked for, they were slaughtering 24,000 a day.
That's a lot of turkeys.
Yeah, it was a lot. So I kind of went through that, and then from there, I worked my way up on the commercial side and got into the leadership roles, and then just kind of carried that along with me into management. And then I took a position where I was an area manager for the western side of the United States, and did a lot of traveling, a lot of flying. But got to spend some time with some just great people, not only in the offices, but I got to spend time with our drivers that were everywhere. And just a real pleasure to spend time with them. And being it was the western side of the United States, I would see some of our guys and gals that lived, let's say, in LA or something like that. And I'd be visiting a facility, whether it be up in Hayward, California, or even in Elko, Nevada, and I start running into these drivers there, and you get to know everybody, and it's like a big family. And that was the one thing that I always liked about it, is you get to know people, you get to work with people, and you really have a bunch of fun while you're doing it, And then I did spend a little bit of time up in the Dakotas. Lived up there for 10 years, running a trucking company up there, and then I was given the opportunity to join on with GLS. And so coming into here has definitely been a pleasure. I enjoy everybody I get to work with. There's so many people that have done different things in their lives, and we get to talk to them and stuff, and it's really cool to be around that kind of stuff, and then talking to our drivers whenever I do get an opportunity to, and just thanking people for what they do. This is, when you look at a career path and you look at transportation is a very, very tough career. It's demanding on you. There's a lot of pressure that comes with it. I think it's an everyday challenge, and you just got to stay on top of it. But definitely rewarding, though, at the same time.
I know one thing I would point out, you've made some lifelong friends over all these years. I know of a few people that call you every day for advice still, for working with them in the past. And I just have one question on the turkeys. I know I used to haul chickens out of the Arkansas area, and sitting at those kill plants and stuff, I could not eat chicken anymore. That is the worst smell. Are turkeys the same way?
They are. And you're talking about hauling turkeys. I got to tell you this story. This is, I guess if somebody would have seen me in the truck, they would have probably thought I had lost my mind or something. But I'd gone out to a farm, and we had cage trailers. The cages were built onto the trailers, so they didn't come off, and they would load them. Well, I had gone and picked up a load of hens, and of course the hens are much smaller than the toms, so their heads would go out of the cage door. And we loaded them at night, and it was probably 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm driving through this little town in Colorado, and there's only one traffic light in the middle of town, and then they've got some street lights around that. So I come up, and the light's red, so I come up, and I just kind of stop, and I look in my mirror, and I've got about 800 hens looking out at my mirror. They're looking at me like, where are we going? And I couldn't help but laugh. It was just funny.
Were they like, are we there yet?
Yeah, that's right.
I'll turn this bus around.
But no, you're right, Kenny. There's, the people that you meet in your career, and those lifelong friends and contacts and stuff, it's great to have those kind of relationships, and I think the thing that ties it all together is we deal with the same thing. You know, when we're out there and we're running down the road and we're dealing with customers and stuff, it's the same thing on whatever we haul product wise, you know, or who we're going to. The expectation is the same of the customer, you know.
You build that camaraderie.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What would be your worst experience on the road?
I was actually hauling lumber, and I had gone into Wheatland, Wyoming, and I was looking the first time I'd ever gone there to this lumber yard, and we had maps. I was looking at maps to try to find out where they were on the street. So I pulled over to the side of the road, and I passed the street that I needed to turn on, and I really couldn't go forward because I was getting into a residential area. You know, a lot of low trees and stuff. So there was, I think it was a Taco John's or something right there on the side of the road, and nobody was in there. It was early in the morning. So I went to turn around. Drove around the building. I come around the building, and I got back on the main road, and I had about 100 feet of cable hanging from the top of the trailer.
Oh, no.
That was dragging down the road. And so I pulled over, and I grabbed that cable. It's like, what do I do? You know, I'm already a quarter mile down the road. So I wound it up, and I pulled into to the lumber company to unload, and the guy comes out, and he's got his forklift and stuff, and then another guy comes out of the office, and he says, were you the one that was in town that was lost? And I said, yeah. And he said, the sheriff would like for you to stop at his office when you get done here. He needs to talk to you. And I thought, okay. So I knew better. I was going to go to the sheriff's office. I wasn't leaving. So I went over and I talked to him, and the problem that the guy had, it was a trailer house there, and that was his cable TV line that was running over to his house, and it busted his TV against the wall because it ripped the cable out of the side of the trailer house, and he said his TV committed suicide on the wall. So, I mean, we had to buy him a TV and stuff. He was really a good guy, and he understood and stuff, but it was a bad day.
Was that a black and white TV, or did that?
It was an expensive TV.
What would you consider your best load, your best run, your best route, your best story?
I would have to say when I first started driving, I got an opportunity to spend a fair amount of time in the Midwest. And there was things like on my bucket list that I wanted to see. I wanted to see the arch. I'd never seen the arch before. So I wanted to see the arch. So I got to see that. I passed Arrowhead Stadium. I got to see that. Down in Dallas, I got to see the Cowboy Stadium. I wouldn't have seen that kind of stuff if I hadn't been trucking, and it was just an experience to get out and see some of that stuff and kind of check it off my bucket list, And then there were times that when my route would allow that when I was resetting and stuff, I would get out and go check out some of the stuff in the local areas. I'd hit a few museums and stuff in different areas, pioneer museums, things like that. I always thought that was kind of fun. If I'm going to be out there, let's have some fun while we're doing it, And I think that's really the highlights that I got from it, And of course the relationships with receivers and stuff, because you get to know them and you look forward to visiting with them again.
With today, doing all of this stuff, you got your Jeep and your trailer and whatnot, and you get going down the road. Do you revisit some of these areas that you've gone through? I do.
Call
it nostalgia lane.
I do, man.
So,
I do.
The TV guy.
The TV guy.
I can tell you that there's places that I've been to on business, whether it's visiting with customers or running the truck or whatever, that I've experienced, and now I look on vacations and stuff, and I take my wife and I took my son too, and we'd go to these places because I wanted them to see what I was seeing, right? It's like, you got to see this. This is cool, and we just had a bunch of fun doing that.
Right on.
Yeah.
I know last week Kenny talked about being a a thumper for the mafia? That's kinda, or something like that. I don't remember the story exactly. You might have to go back and listen to it. But I was wondering if, I was hoping as you were telling your story that we'd hear something like that, that you were a mafia thumper. But
No.
I can't say that I have to say I'm a little disappointed. Your story just seemed too normal.
But I'll tell you what some of the challenges are, though, and we talked about it before. It goes with the technologies and things that are always changing and hours of service, and you really got to stay up on top of it because it's always changing.
This
And
industry is always evolving.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's right. And I think that's probably one of the tough things, and then how you do certain things is up to you. When you're running a truck and you want to take and look at your hours of service and how you're running, you got the legal side of it that you got to comply with, but you also have what can I do to be able to get to a place on time, and how can I make that happen and still be 100% legal, because we don't want anybody running illegal, know. So it's just how do you do that, and it's always changing. And I know, Kenny, you were talking about some of that too, on how you can break your schedule, and how you're running that.
What's great is with your experience and in all the fields you've been in, and my experience and your experience is GLS is going out there, and we're tools, just like the drivers are. If you think about it, is we go out and we find the most experience in these fields, to help this company succeed, and that's what we're doing when we're asking for help getting drivers is we're here to help. We want everybody to succeed, and we put all the tools in place to do that, whether it's customer freight or, the equipment, the advice, all of that is here for everybody else, We're all old drivers, trying to get new drivers.
Yeah.
So it's just great that this company goes and seeks out people for the positions they need. Right now we're seeking positions that we need, and that's drivers.
Absolutely. And with GLS, I think one of the exciting things for me coming on and being part of this team is we went from a lot of brokered freight, and we've got a lot of dedicated customers now. And it's working with those customers, looking at lanes that make sense for us to operate in, working with the team. It's not like I go out and do all this stuff. This takes everybody on a team, to make it happen. And but to see the results, and from the time you first have a conversation, walking in the door with a prospective customer, and you get to introduce to them who you are and who you're representing as a company and a team, and then for them to give us the opportunity and entrust us to handle their products, and we make that happen to the point where we're starting to pull 10 loads or plus a week for that customer, and hearing the positive feedback. We may get delayed in weather and things of that nature. We may have a truck breakdown. That's the real world.
It happens.
Yeah, but I think our customers see that as well, and they're happy with the performance that our team is giving them, and that's being there on time and getting that load and taking care of that product during transportation, making sure it's refrigerated and maintaining temperature to the time we get to the receiver and we deliver it, and everything happens. That customer relies on us. We've been able to do that, and in turn, they're empowering and are giving us more freight, and empowering us to run our business and do what we need to do to support them.
And that's you guys. That's you guys doing the hard work and making that all happen, right? Thank you.
For sure.
For sure. Communication goes a long way in this business. From any aspect in the trucking world, if you can't communicate, whether it be driver to dispatch or general manager to customer, there has to be that open lane of communication, and hopefully all the drivers that are with us currently know that, and all the drivers, future drivers, we're here all the time. Our phones are always available to call. Office is always open to come in and chat. We want you involved, whether it's in our safety, whether it's in KPIs. We want everyone involved because the success of this company requires the whole team. It's just not 1, 2, or 3 of us.
Driver survey, that helps a lot as well. You guys have been doing great on that. Keep them coming. Appreciate that. Francis, you have anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I think I would like to throw out a safety topic again. I think I'd like to talk a little bit about testing your brakes. So when we're looking at brake pressure tests, when we're sitting there with ignition on, no engine running, and we're testing to see if we have any leaks, and then on the other side of holding the pressure, right? And seeing with everything released if we're holding. Technology has changed. So we're going from brake chamber, driving a S-cam and everything that related to the old brake system and what we had for airlines. Now we're looking at rotors and calipers, right? So it's a little bit different in there. And I think given the technology change and what happens anytime you're sitting there and you've got some time on your hand, I think it's always a good thing to test that out. Not only is it a requirement, but a person really does need to check it out and make sure that it's working correctly.
Brakes are super expensive,
yes,
especially if you're not checking them and you have to replace the rotor, the pad, the caliper. I mean, you're thousands of dollars into it.
I thought I seen a trailer out here on 84 caught fire the other day.
Yeah.
We don't want that.
No.
Yep. No, absolutely. But I mean, and that's the only way you're going to find out if you have that problem, is by testing it like that. And you need to just go back and do that.
When you're doing your visual inspection on your brakes and your brake pads, especially on the rotors, you'll want a 1/4 inch of material, and it's hard to get down there and measure that. But if you look at the back plating of that brake pad, that back plating is about a 1/4 of an inch. So if your pad itself is less than the back plating, we need to get you in ASAP to get that taken care of.
Yeah.
And then that way you're not replacing a rotor and you're not replacing a caliper. You let that metal backing plate into the rotor, you're going to be replacing a rotor. You let it go too much longer and that back plate falls out, you're replacing a caliper as well. And
Very expensive.
Super expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember carrying a 9/16 wrench, and every mountain we came to, we had to adjust to make sure we could stop going down the mountain. It's come a long ways, self-adjusting brakes, and I think drivers would become complacent, and just expect everything to work because it's auto. Well,
yep. Did you have a ball peen hammer to go with that? So when you got under there on that slack adjuster and it wouldn't pop that sleeve up, you had to knock it in.
Never a ball peen. I think I used a real hammer.
Well, we want to thank you guys for joining us today. And as we end this episode, thank you for being safe. Thank you for making the right choices. Remember, you're our eyes and ears on the road. If you see something, say something. We all succeed when you complete your trip safely in your home with your loved ones.
See you next time.
See ya.